Hello, you're listening to Cheat Sheet, the podcast that cuts through the shouting, the scroll, the spin to bring you everything that's happening in 10 minutes. I'm Anna Jones.
And I'm Kamali Melbourne. Happy 2026, Anna.
And to you. I know, it's quite a long way in.
It is. It's January the 9th. And here's what we have in store for you today. So now Storm Goretti has brought dangerous winds and caused travel chaos across parts of the UK, with more travel plans expected to be disrupted for later.
Federal officers have shot and wounded 2 people in the US city of Portland. This, of course, a day after a woman was shot dead by an immigration agent in Minneapolis.
Yeah, and pub landlords are celebrating an unexpected U-turn expected by the government over plans to increase business rates.
Storm Goretti has hit the UK, bringing quite a lot of chaos with it. At the time of recording, Birmingham Airport's been forced to close its runway because of snow, and hundreds of schools are closed because of the bad weather. There was a red danger to life weather warning for wind in Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly. And a major incident has been declared in Jersey and in Guernsey, with some residents having to be evacuated after a tree fell on a block of flats. And the storm has brought some record gusts of 99 miles an hour to the Isles of Scilly, so that's pretty forceful. Power lines have been struck, meaning that at one point more than 70,000 homes across England and Wales were without electricity. And there's been severe disruption to rail services as well. A lot of journeys cancelled. The good news, though, is that the storm is set to ease today, but do keep an eye out for the latest on our website at news.sky.com.
Yeah, well, that 99 mile an hour gust was felt, as you say, in the Scilly Isles. That was at St Mary's. The Met Office conveniently have a league table of top gusts, if you're interested in that sort of thing, on their social media. Next up was Culdrose with 90 miles an hour, then Camborne with 82 miles per hour gusts felt. Now, that travel disruption and the disruption to services and schools is one to watch out for as the day progresses. But as you say, those warnings have been lifted, and let's hope now going into the weekend that the storm effects will subside slightly.
Yeah, the most serious warning, the red warning's been lifted, hasn't it? But as you say, plenty of disruption. Miserable if you're without power. Mm-hmm. If your kid's school has been closed for the day. Well. So many closed today. And just, trying to keep warm. Trains not running in many areas as well. So across Devon and Cornwall, a lot of schools closed, but also in Scotland. And for some pupils in Scotland, they've been off all week because of the weather. So we'll keep a close eye on how it all pans out.
Now, 2 people are in hospital in the US state of Oregon after being shot by federal agents who say they were carrying out a targeted vehicle stop. Of course, this comes just a day after an immigration officer, an ICE officer, shot dead a woman called Renee Nicole Good in Minneapolis, which led to protests in that city and other parts of the country. Well, the US Homeland Security say that border agents pulled over a Venezuelan immigrant who was thought to be part of the gang. The department says that when the border agents identified themselves, the driver weaponized the vehicle and tried to run over the agents. Authorities say the condition of the victim is unknown and have appealed for calm. Now, people who witnessed the fatal shooting of that woman in Minneapolis have challenged claims by the authorities there that say she was attacking those federal agents. She was a mother of 3 and was fired at by immigration officers when sitting in her car. Now, in the last few hours, we've heard from the Vice President of the United States, who's really doubled down on this Trump administration narrative that this was an act of domestic terror, that this woman was trying to attack the federal agents. I think what you can take from this, Anna, is that people have watched that video and have made their own mind up. The thing about the video is that we don't know what happened prior to the person pressing record. We can't see what happened before that. All we can see is that the car moves and this woman is tragically shot dead. But America is so divided that people have already made up their minds about what the truth of this is.
Yeah, and meanwhile, the details of this latest shooting are still pretty sketchy at this stage, aren't they? But it's really not going to help ease those tensions over the shooting of Renee Nicole Good. And as you say, both sides doubling down on how they feel that events panned out. The Trump administration, their officials are saying that the officer who shot her was acting in self-defense. Many Democrats are accusing that officer of reckless use of force. So there's a big divide there. And really interesting to see whether the fallout from this changes minds at all. As you say, it seems to be going down party lines at the moment, but whether or not it changes the view of ISIS operations and their immigration crackdowns. And Plenty of anger out there, but we should also kind of acknowledge there's lots of sadness too. And there have been vigils taking place across the country, flowers and candles, teddy bears, placards, all placed at the scene too, where that mum of three was shot.
Yeah. Final point on this: the New York Times report that the state of Minnesota has withdrawn from the investigation into this because they say that federal officials have denied them access to some of the evidence in this shooting. And the New York Times are also reporting that some 100 federal troops are on their way to the state. So one to keep a very close eye on.
Now, there's been a nationwide internet and phone line blackout in Iran, where protests have taken place for the 12th night in a row. The US-based human rights activists news agency reports over 2,200 protesters have been arrested in that time, and at least 34 protesters have been killed. Well, demonstrations took place in the capital, Tehran, and the major cities of Mashhad and Isfahan, where protesters chanted slogans against the country's religious leaders, shouting death to the dictator and death to the Islamic Republic. And meanwhile, there's video around on social media which is purporting to show a government building being set on fire as well. So a really significant moment for the country and the region. And at this stage, hard to predict where it's going to end.
Yeah, it really is. The Iranian president has called for restraint. He said that any violent or coercive behaviour should be avoided, and he's called for dialogue, engagement and listening to people's demands, which anyone who has paid any attention to any protests in Iran in recent years will find remarkable that the regime there is trying to listen. Now, the background to this, if anyone hasn't been paying attention, is because of the economic crisis in Iran. The current protests came after shopkeepers in Tehran's Grand Bazaar were complaining about the fall in the value of the currency. They went out on the streets. This was businesses, professionals who went out to protest. That now has been taken up by many more people in Iran. It's into its 12th night of protests, and it's definitely something that is roiling the country and could have a very significant outcome for the region.
Yeah, and of course we've had Donald Trump's warning to the Iranian regime. Donald Trump saying we're locked and loaded, watching how they're treating protesters. And after the actions in Venezuela last week, it'll be really interesting to see whether that has any impact on how the authorities there behave.
Now, the Prime Minister has had another call with President Trump where they talked about the threat of Russia and Donald Trump's warning that the US could take Greenland. So Keir Starmer has repeatedly said that the future of the territory should be a matter for Greenland and Denmark. During their second call in 2 days, a statement from Downing Street said that they discussed deterring an increasingly aggressive Russia in the high north, which of course includes Greenland. Starmer also said European allies had stepped in recent months to defend Euro-Atlantic interests, but more could be done to protect the area.
Yeah, and as well as talking to Donald Trump again, we're told that Keir Starmer also had a call with Denmark's Prime Minister yesterday, apparently reiterating his position on Greenland, and he spoke to the NATO chief, Mark Rutte, as well. So he had a pretty busy afternoon on the phone, which perhaps illustrates this sort of diplomatic squeeze that Keir Starmer is in over Greenland. On the one hand, he's really keen to keep NATO allies calm and united, but at the same time, he's not going to want to antagonise Donald Trump.
Yeah, and one for you podcast fans to look out for, Electoral Dysfunction has interviewed Beth Rigby, has sat down with the former Danish Prime Minister, Helle Thorning-Schmidt, who had told Beth that Denmark is being bullied by the US over Greenland. So that will be in your podcast feeds pretty soon.
Now, a rescue package could be on the way for publicans who've been faced with an increase in business rates following the budget in November. But ministers are now being lobbied by other sectors for tax relief plans for their struggling businesses. High street hotels, restaurants and music venues are saying that they'll potentially be exposed to uplifts as COVID-era support comes to an end.
Yeah, let's just take you through some of the detail of this. Reeve said during the budget that she would reduce headline business rates for the hospitality industry, but at the same time, she announced the end of COVID-era reliefs, as you said, Anna, which, when combined with a 3-year revaluation of property values, dwarfed the impact of the rates cuts. So as a result, pubs were facing an average rise of 76% over 3 years, while hotels were going up 115%. Now, since the budget, we spoke to publicans who were really, really concerned about this. So they will be happy if their lobbying has resulted in there being a U-turn. But for the government, I mean, it's just another U-turn to add to, isn't it? Winter fuel, the inheritance tax for farmers. It's just the latest chance for the government to have made a decision about something, then row back.
Yeah, and the government will argue, well, we're just listening and we're responding if we believe that this particular push has a case. And as you say, it's going to go down well with the industry. Really interesting to know how much these Labour MPs who were pushing for change had an influence. And I wonder how much they, in turn, were influenced by perhaps being turned away from their local pub.
Banned from the pub.
Yeah, banned from their local. And I read this morning that Darren Jones, Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister, apparently his local pub was threatening to charge him double.
Yikes. No one wants to pay twice for those pints. All right, well, that is all from today's Cheat Sheet. If you've got a story you think we should cover, get in touch. Our email address is cheatsheet@sky.uk. And remember to follow the feed so you never miss an episode. Thanks for listening. Wolf and Soph will be back on Monday.
They will indeed. Have a good weekend.